Hello my friends, this is Dwight from Force Glory 700 coming back at you with another video. And in this video, I have to admit I am so frustrated by what I'm seeing out in my community and around the world with people acquiescing to the lie, which is COVID-19. I'm so tired of seeing people walking in the community, out in the public, with their mask on over their noses and over their mouths, suffocating their bodies, not allowing their bodies to receive sufficient oxygen, which is clearly necessary for them to function as a living organism. And all this they're doing because they've been directed by the World Health Organization and the CDC, which represents the Center for Deception and Control. And no one stops to think, well, wait a minute, what is going on here? Why am I doing this? Especially in a free society. This is not a communist or a socialist country. We're supposed to be a democracy. We're supposed to be a people who have a great deal of autonomy in comparison in relationship to other countries that are not free, that are communist, that are under some type of totalitarian regime where their freedoms are squashed and are denied. But in our Western society, such as Canada and America and United Kingdom and Australia and New Zealand and every other country that holds on to Western values, where each one of us as individuals are recognized as being individuals and not simply a collective. And so I see people walking around almost like in a daze, to be totally honest with you. Mask-A-Maniacs, COVID cult members that simply comply and follow with whatever their respective governments tell them to do, even though their common sense and their experience tells them otherwise. And it's so frustrating to see people being deceived, seeing people being taken advantage of, seeing people losing a sense of themselves. And that's exactly what's going on with this COVID pandemic, is that it's gone beyond this so-called virus that's taking so many lives, allegedly. And interestingly enough, the CDC, the Center for Deception and Control, actually came out on their website. Apparently you had to really dig for it, but they came out on their website and they acknowledged that of the original COVID deaths, or the death count that they've given for COVID, and in the States, I believe it's reaching close to 200,000 people that have been supposedly succumbed to the coronavirus. They've come back to say that, well, wait a minute, in actuality, it's only 6% of roughly that 200,000 people in America that actually died directly as a result of COVID-19, and that the remaining 94% actually died of comorbidities, meaning that they had multiple, at least 2, 3, sometimes 4 pre-existing conditions long before they were apparently diagnosed with COVID-19. So the reality is, there is no pandemic that is going on whatsoever in any part of the world. Everything has been manipulated and controlled to get us, the masses, to fall into line with their agenda to establish the New World Economic Order. And they're actually achieving that perfectly, because everyone is acquiescing to it, because, again, they own the mass media, the corporate media, and the media determines what is our reality, what is true and what is false. And right now the narrative is that COVID-19 is an absolutely lethal pandemic that has taken the lives of so many people, and that we must suspend our freedoms in our Western society for safety and security, and we must look to the technocrats, to those in leadership positions in government and in medicine and in science. We must look to them as our parental figures to determine what is the right and necessary course of action as it relates to our current crisis, so-called. And so this stuff is just mind-boggling, because there's so much evidence online. If you would just take the time to look at the evidence online, that would refute everything that is being presented to you by the mass or the mainstream media that is just presenting fear-mongering and lies to get us to acquiesce and to fall into line with the New World Economic Order, which I believe is here. And now they're going to be pushing us towards taking some type of mandatory vaccine related to COVID-19 in order for us to go back to some type of normalcy. So for now, we have to get used to the new normal, and we have to accept that in order for things to go back to some form of normality, that we have to be willing to give up our sovereignty as individuals within our own respective countries. This is absolutely absurd. It's completely idiotic on any level that a free people, as we are in Western societies, would be so willing and so freely to give up our freedoms based on the notion that there's this virus out there that's knocking us off left, right, and center. And the reality is, none of that is actually happening. But because we are so programmed and we are so fixated on what the mainstream media and those in the medical industry and the politicians and the science community are saying, that we simply acquiesce and we throw up our hands and we say, you know what, they know best and they're looking out for our best interest. But the reality is they're not. They're not looking out for our best interest. I think as individuals within Western societies, especially in free societies, we understand the importance, or at least we should understand the importance of freedom. And that with freedom comes responsibility. And I'm not saying that we should be irresponsible with how we interact with our fellow humans, but the reality is we're not under a pandemic. We're not even under an epidemic. This is nothing. COVID-19 is simply a smokescreen for us to be fixated on so that they can put into place the New World Economic Order, where they will have complete and utter control over every area and every aspect of our lives. I am not down for that, and I do not consent to wearing a face mask. I do not consent to wearing a face shield or a visor. I do not consent to social distancing. I do not consent to contact tracing. I do not consent to government officials who are supposed to represent the people acting as though they have autonomy over my life and over my person. They do not. The government in a free society is supposed to represent the people. And right now, governments, respective governments in free societies are failing to do just that. They're failing to put the needs of the people first. And government is supposed to be minimal at best. It's not supposed to be all-encompassing in the lives of the citizens. It's absolutely absurd what we're going through right now. And I'm so frustrated to see my fellow citizens in Canada in particular being manipulated and controlled and brainwashed through mass media and propaganda to get us to comply with a narrative that's only gonna enslave us in the end. This is not Canada. It is not America. It is not Europe. It's not any free society that holds freedom at the highest level, which we're failing to do because of what they're telling us to be true, which is an absolute lie. I am so frustrated and I will not comply. to any of the above. I deal with situations right now in the community where I go to the store or to any place of business and I don't wear a mask. I let them know that I have an exemption, or I simply let them know that as a free man, as a free human being, I do not consent and I do not agree with what the mandates that these government types are putting in place. And I'm appealing to people that are free, that believe that they're free, to come to your senses, to come to your God-given senses, to recognize that you are a human being and that you are not a biohazard, and that you are created in the likeness and image of the living God, and that as human beings we ought to live with respect and dignity for one another and not live in fear. So please remove the mask of your bondage, remove social distances, interact with your family and your friends and your loved ones, and just recognize that you're a free person and that you will not acquiesce. And that's all I have to say. Take care and be blessed. Goodbye.